The story begins on November 7th, 2018, at 4 p.m. in a town called Paradise in California. There was a school bus driver named Kevin who was taking children to their homes after the school day. After dropping off all the kids, Kevin parked the bus in the garage. His manager, Ruby, told him that his bus still needed maintenance. Kevin asked Ruby about extra shifts because he needed money to cover his expenses, but Ruby said there was nothing available now and told him she would let him know if something came up. After that, Kevin went home. While on the way, he got a call from the veterinarian who said that the cancer in his dog had spread and he needed to take it to the clinic. When he arrived home, he found his mother there and his son, Sean, had come back from school because he was sick. Kevin told him that school is important, but Sean replied angrily, saying it wasn't important to Kevin either. The truth is that Kevin had dropped out of school long ago because he was going to be a father and didn't want Sean to make the same mistake and not take school seriously, ending up struggling in life like him. Instead of listening to his father, Sean turned the music up to the maximum. Kevin got angry and told him to wait until he had to pay the bills himself. The two got into a fight and Sean exploded at him, saying he wished Kevin was dead. After that, Kevin took his dog and went to the veterinarian. Those were his dog's final moments. This was a dog that had been with him since it was a small puppy. The next day, strong winds caused a power cable to break on a hilltop, sparking a fire. The fire started spreading extremely fast because of the wind, and there was a red flag warning for wildfires in the Paradise area. Ruby told Kevin that the mechanic would perform maintenance on his bus today, and he needed to return it soon. Kevin took the bus and left, and at that time, the fire was growing bigger and bigger. A transport vehicle passed by and reported it to the fire and rescue department, who immediately informed the California Fire Department. 2 fire trucks moved to extinguish the fire. The winds were very strong and dry in that area. The firefighters realized that the fire was caused by a power cable, but reaching it was not easy at all. They struggled through narrow, winding mountain roads. At that time, Kevin was picking up the children from their stops. His mother started calling him several times in a row. Kevin didn't answer right away because he was working. When he finally answered, his mother told him that Sean's condition had worsened. But at that moment, Kevin got an order from the base to return the bus immediately for maintenance as soon as he finished dropping off the kids. Kevin told him he would refuel and return, and he told his mother to check Sean's temperature. On the other side, the firefighters still couldn't reach the fire. The road was blocked, and they had to find another way. All this information was reaching the head of the fire department, named Ray Martinez. Paradise was still far from the fire, so they weren't worried that problems might happen there. At the same time, Sean refused to talk to Kevin on the phone, and his temperature was 38.5 degrees Celsius. Kevin told his mother he couldn't talk now because he had to return the bus to the garage, and he would get medicine for Sean on his way back. At that moment, Ray got a report about a second fire, this time on Rim Road north of Concow, which was far from the original fire. This fire was also caused by a power line. Ray got very angry at the power company employee and told him they had given him a red flag warning last night and told him to cut off the power lines. Cut all the lines now. At that moment, an engineer named Hopkins called Ray on the radio and said he was in the Concow area and the situation there was very dangerous. Suddenly, Hopkins saw small fire spots appearing in the area, spreading at an unnatural speed, and visibility was disappearing quickly. This area was also far from the other fires, and the power lines that were already cut off. Ray analyzed the situation and said it was all one fire, all from the same cable. It was one fire spreading at a terrifying rate. He directed all his forces to the Concow area. Ruby informed all her drivers about the fire and told them to keep the radio on at all times. Ruby told Kevin to return to the base quickly, or they would miss the afternoon shift due to maintenance. But Kevin still needed to stop to get medicine for his son. At that time, the engineer Hopkins started helping evacuate people who didn't have cars and loaded them into his transport vehicle. At the same time, Kevin got a call from his ex-wife, Linda, who said that Sean was sending her messages asking her to come get him. Kevin told her there was no need. He was sick, and Kevin had already gotten his medicine and everything was fine. He said he couldn't talk now because he was working. Linda replied that she was also working and was supposed to go to Colorado with her daughter that night. Those words hurt Kevin, but he ended the call and reported the smoke he saw to his base. Ruby told him to ignore the smoke for now and bring the bus back quickly, or he should find another job. On the other side, Ray was sending fire trucks to Concow, but by the time they arrived, it would be too late. The engineer Hopkins could barely drive his vehicle, and the firefighting planes took off to help, but due to the strong winds, they couldn't hit their targets. Ray told Hopkins to head to a bridge and hide in the water beneath it. Hopkins stopped the vehicle and told everyone with him to get into the water. Everyone got out quickly. The fire was about to reach them, and the fire trucks couldn't get to them because the roads were blocked. Then the fire reached the people standing in the water, and Ray tried to contact Hopkins, but there was no response. Everyone thought they had died in the fire, but suddenly Hopkins responded. They all survived but had serious injuries. Hopkins reported that the fire was advancing toward Paradise at a terrifying speed. Back in Paradise, Kevin also noticed fire trucks rushing around him. He left a voice message for his son, saying he was sorry for everything that happened yesterday, that he got his medicine and would be home as soon as he finished work. He told him about the fire in Concow and said not to worry about anything, but to keep an eye on the news on Channel 7. Ray issued evacuation orders for several areas in East Paradise, but when they tried to send an evacuation warning from the city council, they failed due to a signal issue. Then the scene shifts to an elementary school that didn't want to wait for evacuation orders anymore. They started calling the children's parents, but some kids' parents were working outside the town, so they would need to take those children to an alternative meeting point where their parents could pick them up. Back to Kevin, who got another call from Linda. She accused him of being irresponsible. Kevin admitted his mistake and that he didn't realize his son was really sick and didn't want to argue with her about it. Linda said this was her first weekend going out with someone else since they separated and continued that she knew everything was hard on him since his father's death, but now he should think about Sean. His life was a mess, and Sean didn't want to live with him. Kevin loved his son deeply and was affected. He sent him another voice message saying he needed to know he was okay. After that, Kevin decided to go home immediately instead of going to the garage. But at that moment, Ruby informed all the drivers that they were evacuating East Paradise. Any driver in that area needed to leave immediately, and if they had any children, they needed to take them out of town to the Chico garage. At the elementary school, parents started picking up their children. The kids whose parents couldn't come would be transferred to another elementary school according to orders, and their parents would pick them up from there. But there were 23 children at that school who needed a bus to get out. The school principal called Ruby. Ruby asked all her drivers if anyone was nearby. There was no one on that route except Kevin, who was heading home. Kevin found himself facing two choices: go to his son or go get those children. Kevin said no at first, but then told Ruby he could get them. Ruby said okay, they would do the maintenance later. The important thing was to get those kids out. Then Kevin arrived at the elementary school. He wanted the children to board the bus quickly, but the teacher, Mary, had to calm the young children and line them up first. These were young kids. They couldn't be panicked or scared in front of them. Everything had to be done calmly, and that took time. Kevin told her to hurry, please. She needed to understand the seriousness of the situation. They finally got the children on the bus. Kevin told Mary she had to come with them too. He said he would drop off the kids, but wouldn't know how to handle them there. He needed to go to his family. Mary informed the principal and went with Kevin. Kevin wanted to take a different route, but Mary said they would stick to the plan. At that moment, there was a traffic jam about 25 meters long trying to reach Chico. Then Ray arrived at his command center. He wanted to evacuate the entire area, but if he did that, the traffic would prevent his fire trucks from entering the town. A man from the power company named Mark Rogers arrived. Ray told him to cut the power in the town immediately. Ray gave the order to evacuate the entire town, but on the other side, all communications between Ruby and Kevin were cut off. They couldn't reach each other. Kevin's phone also lost signal. His bus was the only one left in East Paradise, and according to safety protocol, the bus only had a first aid kit and a fire extinguisher. The teacher, Mary, asked Kevin about himself. Kevin had only returned to this town a few months ago, but he grew up there. Because they left the school late, they got stuck in traffic. Ruby reported to Fire Operations Room that they lost contact with one of their buses in East Paradise. They didn't know that Kevin had changed his route. Mary told him they had to stick to plan, but Kevin said they would stay stuck in traffic here, and the fire was advancing toward them quickly. All the children started crying, scared of Kevin's driving, but all Kevin cared about was getting those kids to their parents by any means. Mary was sick with asthma. Back at the base, Ruby received evacuation instructions, and even as she was leaving, she was still trying to reach Kevin, but to no avail. In the bus, Kevin and Mary were talking. Mary had been married for 19 years and had a 15-year-old son. She was supposed to go pick him up, but her sister would get him now. All they had to do was get these children to their parents. All the children were terrified, and the situation in the area was getting worse every minute. Even the hospital caught fire. Ray told his men this was no longer a wildfire. It was a fire in the town itself, and they had to save their families by any means possible. Then Kevin's bus got stuck at a traffic barrier. Mary asked him if his family would get evacuation warnings, but Kevin hadn't registered them for warning services, meaning they wouldn't receive any alerts. Also, Kevin's mother didn't know how to drive. At that moment, a nearby house caught fire. Mary pulled the children away from the windows, and Kevin told Mary to take the driver's seat. Mary didn't know how to drive, but now she had to. Kevin got out and went to talk to the traffic officer himself, saying he had children in the bus. But the officer himself was trapped and needed to clear the road for fire trucks to pass and put out the fire. Kevin started clearing the road himself, moving cars to the side. Mary brought the bus forward, and Kevin returned to his place. They were only 1 minute away from the drop-off area. Mary told him he could be a good traffic officer. At the same time, all the children were happy they would see their parents soon. But the elementary school they were supposed to go to had completely burned down. Mary got out and looked around. There was no one there. Kevin and Mary didn't know what to do, so Mary said they had to take these kids to Chico and then go back for their own children. At that moment, a girl got scared and fainted on the floor. Mary comforted her, and Kevin started the bus and left from there. At that time, Ray learned about Kevin's bus and that 22 children were stuck in it. He also learned about the power cables that the firefighters had to cut to move forward and that there was still power. Ray got very angry at the power company representative and asked why they were still running. The representative explained that the automatic cutoff happened, but manually cutting the switches took some time. Back to Kevin and Mary, who only had 2 roads left to escape. One was very narrow, full of 180-degree turns, and the bus couldn't possibly pass through it. They had to take the other road. Then a child named Toby, who was very scared, said Kevin didn't know where their parents were. Kevin took him and sat him up front. The boy lived with his mother, and Kevin told him they would get him to his mom. But on the road they were traveling, power cables started snapping and falling. Kevin drove very carefully to protect the bus. Power poles were falling right in front of him, and he had to veer the bus off the road, crashing through a fence as he moved forward, but the road ahead was completely blocked. They had to try the narrow road. On the road, people were burning, and there were even thieves who attacked their bus. One of them had a gun. Kevin stopped him from entering the bus and turned back. On the other side, Ruby arrived at Chico. All her buses were there except Kevin's. In the bus, the children were thirsty and hot, and smoke started entering through the air conditioning vents, so they had to turn off the air conditioning too. Kevin found himself in a park where he used to come as a child. From there was a path leading to the other road. At that moment, a little girl had a panic attack. She needed to drink water immediately or she might have a seizure. They had to stop and look for water. Mary said she would go outside, and if the fire came, Kevin should take the children and leave. Mary went out into the smoke to look for water, but couldn't find anything anywhere. On top of that, she had asthma. Amid all that smoke, Mary found water bottles in a van belonging to a house. Kevin started calling for her. Things around them were exploding due to fire, but Mary finally managed to return. Kevin started the bus and moved forward. There was nothing around them but fire. Kevin couldn't find any exit, and the children were screaming from the smoke. Suddenly, they found a road to escape through. Back there, Ruby was telling all the parents that the children had been evacuated to the elementary school, but they hadn't heard any news from them since they left. When they learned that a new driver was driving the bus, the parents got more worried, but Ruby said she trusted Kevin completely, and they should trust him too. Kevin was now driving on the narrow road. There was very little space on the right and left of the bus. Suddenly, people started coming from the opposite direction, stopped Kevin, and prevented him from continuing. They said there was fire ahead. Kevin stopped them from going back too, saying there was fire behind them as well. But those people said they had to try their luck. Now Kevin couldn't move forward or backward. He got out of the bus and climbed a cliff to look at the fire. He found the fire surrounding them from every direction. Kevin returned and said they couldn't go anywhere. They had to stay there. Mary said they could walk out, but Kevin replied that these kids wouldn't last 2 minutes. Mary said, "What do you mean we'll stay here and wait?" Kevin answered that this was the only place without fire. Everywhere else was burning. Mary said, "What if the fire comes here? What will happen to these kids?" Unfortunately, they had no solutions. After that, Kevin tore his shirt into pieces, wet them with water, and made filters for the children. He also sealed the air conditioning vents with tape, so no smoke could enter. At that time, the firefighters' water ran out, and there was no pressure in the nearby fire hydrants. People were dying in their cars and on foot while escaping the fire. When Ray heard this, he told them to focus only on saving lives. Inside the bus, everyone's condition was worsening. Kevin stopped Mary from getting up from her seat. He told the children to stay away from the windows and try to keep them occupied with talk so they wouldn't notice. The children asked him about the weather at night. Kevin explained that it was just the smoke coming between them and the sunlight. Toby said he wanted his dad. Kevin replied that he knew his dad was doing everything he could to reach him. Mary told Kevin to let the children sleep. It was better. But Kevin said they could barely talk like this. Mary said she had never left Paradise except for 2 weeks to go to Ohio. She thought she would always be safe here if she followed the rules. Everything would be fine. But if she got out of here, she would travel and take her son to Legoland. Kevin said he spent his whole life trying to get away from Paradise, and now all he wanted was to try to live here. He continued, saying when he got the call to pick up these kids, he thought it might be a second chance for him if he could get them out safely. But unfortunately, second chances don't always work. Kevin explained that he talked to his father 28 years ago, and they fought. His father attacked him as he always did, as he had done many times before. That night, Kevin exploded, attacked him, slammed the door, cursed him, and said he never wanted to see his face again. Then he told him he wished he was dead. A year later, his life fell apart. A few months ago, while working a night shift, he got a call from his mother that his father was very sick. Kevin drove all night but arrived too late, and his father died. He was too late as a son, and now he was too late as a father. Kevin started crying as he told the story. But at that moment, a fire broke out right next to them. Kevin tried to put out with a fire extinguisher, but there were multiple fires, and the extinguisher ran out. Kevin tried to put out the fire with his clothes, but the situation got out of control. The fire wouldn't go out like that. Kevin returned to his bus, but now the bus wouldn't start. He put Mary in his place, opened the hood, removed the air filter, and the bus started. Kevin now had to drive the bus through the fire, weaving between fallen, burning trees. He passed through them. The fire was everywhere, and their bus was in the middle. The children were screaming. Kevin drove through the intense fire with his hand burned. In the end, all his effort and courage paid off. They managed to escape the fire. Finally, Kevin arrived with the bus at the Chico garage. The parents gathered around their children. As Toby was leaving, Kevin told him good luck. Mary thanked Kevin, and they hugged each other. Everyone applauded Mary and Kevin. Mary reunited with her family too. Kevin told Ruby it was finally time for maintenance, but he still needed to find his family. He didn't find his family's name on the missing persons list. Kevin started looking around and found his mother there. Their neighbor had brought them. Sean was with his mother. Kevin's mother said, "Thank God, everything turned out fine." After the fire ended, Kevin went to his house, which had completely burned down. Kevin found a burned picture of him and Sean there. At that moment, Sean appeared from behind, and they hugged each other. His mother was watching them. And with that, my friends, our story ends. We'll meet in a new recap. Thanks for watching.